In the vast emptiness of space, where civilizations rise and fall like waves against cosmic shores, there exists a truth that every species learns too late. The universe doesn't care about your advanced technology, your perfect societies, or your carefully calculated plans. It only cares about one thing: who adapts fastest when everything goes wrong. The Corvani Empire learned this the hard way. For 3,000 years, they ruled the Andromeda sector with their massive bioships, living vessels the size of small moons, grown rather than built, thinking rather than programmed. These giants were supposed to be perfect, self-healing, self-improving, immortal. They were the pinnacle of biological engineering, creatures that could cross galaxies and reshape worlds with a thought. Until the day the parasites came. Not from outside. From within. Something in their own perfect design had turned against them. One by one, the great bioships began to die, their massive forms convulsing in space as unknown organisms ate them from the inside out. The Corvani, for all their advanced science, watched helplessly as their empire crumbled. Their greatest creation had become their destroyer. But, in the furthest reaches of their territory, drifting like a dying whale in the cosmic deep, one bioship remained. Massive beyond comprehension, ancient beyond memory, it hung in space with systems failing and parasites spreading through its living corridors like wildfire. The Corvani had given up on it, written it off as another casualty in their species' slow extinction. They never expected a human to find it. They certainly never expected that human to fix it. And they absolutely never imagined what would happen when the most stubborn, adaptable, and dangerously creative species in the galaxy got their hands on a weapon that could reshape reality itself. This is the story of how humanity's greatest strength, our refusal to accept that anything is truly impossible, turned a dying giant into the most feared force the galaxy had ever seen. It's the story of Marcus Chen, a maintenance technician who never met a problem he couldn't solve, and what happened when he decided to save something that everyone else had abandoned. Sometimes the universe's greatest weapons aren't forged in the fires of war. Sometimes they're rescued by someone too stubborn to let them die. Marcus Chen had seen some strange things in his 15 years working salvage in the Outer Rim, but nothing quite like the readings his scanner was giving him now. The human technician floated in his one-man salvage pod, staring at the sensor display with growing disbelief. According to his instruments, the object ahead was roughly the size of Earth's moon, completely biological, and somehow still alive despite showing massive system failures across every spectrum he could measure. "Computer, run a full diagnostic on the sensor array," Marcus muttered, tapping the side of his helmet where the display was flickering. "These readings can't be right." The pod's artificial intelligence responded in its maddeningly calm voice. "Diagnostics complete. All sensors functioning within normal parameters. Object confirmed as biological construct, approximately 3,400 kilometers in diameter. Life signs are weak but present throughout the structure." Marcus whistled softly. In all his years of salvage work, he'd pulled apart everything from abandoned mining stations to derelict warships, but this was something else entirely. The massive shape ahead looked like someone had taken a jellyfish, crossed it with a whale, and then stretched it out to the size of a small planet. Its translucent skin pulsed with weak bioluminescent patterns, and he could see what looked like cities or structures embedded within its flesh. "What the hell are you?" Marcus asked the empty space, pulling up his database of known alien vessels. The search came back with dozens of partial matches but nothing conclusive. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't in any of the standard salvage catalogs. As his pod drifted closer, Marcus began to make out more details. The creature's skin was covered in what looked like barnacles or tumors, dark growths that pulsed with an unhealthy red light. Some of them were massive, kilometers across, and they seemed to be spreading across the creature's surface like a plague. Whatever this thing was, it was definitely sick. Marcus had always been the type to fix things rather than throw them away. Back home on Earth, his garage had been full of ancient combustion engines, broken androids, and obsolete computers that everyone else had given up on. His ex-wife Sarah used to joke that he'd try to repair a black hole if he could figure out how to get close enough. She hadn't meant it as a compliment, but Marcus had always taken it as one. "Computer, can you identify the nature of those growths?" Preliminary analysis suggests parasitic organisms. They appear to be consuming the host's biological systems and reproducing rapidly. The infection pattern is consistent with a cascading system failure. Marcus frowned. Any signs of intelligence in the host organism? Detecting faint neural activity throughout the structure. Brain tissue equivalent is distributed in node clusters approximately every 50 kilometers. Many nodes are offline, but some continue to show minimal activity. That settled it for Marcus. Whatever this thing was, it was suffering, and, in his experience, anything that was suffering deserved help if it could be given. He'd never walked away from a creature in pain, whether it was a stray dog on Earth or, apparently, a moon-sized space whale drifting in the void. Computer, plot an approach course to the nearest surface breach. Let's see if we can get inside and take a look around. Marcus, I should point out that boarding an unknown alien organism of this size carries significant risks. The parasite infection alone could be what? Deadly? Computer, I've spent the last 15 years crawling through the guts of exploded starships and radioactive mining equipment. I think I can handle a few space germs. The pod's engines fired, carrying Marcus toward what looked like a massive wound in the creature's side. As they approached, he could see that the breach went deep, revealing layers of tissue and what looked like mechanical components integrated into the organic structure. This wasn't just a living creature, it was some kind of hybrid of biological and technological systems. Marcus had heard rumors about the Corvani bioships, massive living vessels that the insectoid empire used to patrol their territory, but those were supposed to be legends. The Corvani empire had supposedly fallen centuries ago, their territory now nothing but empty space and dead worlds. Yet here was what looked like one of their mythical bioships, drifting abandoned in the void. As his pod slipped through the breach, Marcus activated his suit's external lights. The walls around him pulsed with a weak heartbeat, and he could see veins of some kind of luminescent fluid running through the tissue. But everywhere he looked, those same parasitic growths were spreading, eating away at the healthy tissue and leaving behind dead, blackened areas. Marcus, I'm detecting elevated levels of toxic compounds in the atmosphere. The creature's immune system appears to be failing. Yeah, I can see that. Marcus guided his pod through what looked like a massive artery, the walls contracting weakly around them. Can you analyze the parasites? Figure out what they're made of? Working. Analysis complete. The parasites appear to be artificial constructs, not naturally occurring organisms. They're designed to mimic biological processes while consuming and converting biological matter into their own substance. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold of space. You mean these things were made? Someone did this on purpose? That appears to be the case. The parasites show signs of deliberate engineering, specifically designed to target Corvani biological systems. So this was sabotage, not disease. Someone had deliberately infected this creature with artificial parasites designed to kill it slowly from the inside. Marcus had seen his share of cruelty in the galaxy, but there was something particularly vicious about this approach. It wasn't just murder, it was torture. The pod emerged into a vast internal chamber, and Marcus gasped despite himself. The space was enormous, easily the size of a city, and it had clearly once been beautiful. Delicate structures that looked like coral formations grew from the walls, and bioluminescent panels provided soft, warm light. It was like being inside a living cathedral. But the parasites were here too. Dark tendrils snaked across the walls, and many of the coral structures were dead and blackened. In the center of the chamber, Marcus could see what looked like a massive organic computer, its surface covered with pulsing nodes and flowing data streams. Most of the nodes were dark, but some still glowed with weak light. That's got to be one of the neural clusters, Marcus muttered, guiding his pod toward the structure. Computer, can you interface with it? Attempting to establish communication. Success. The neural cluster is responding to contact attempts. Marcus felt his heart rate increase as words began appearing on his display, text in a script he'd never seen before. Can you translate? Working. Translation matrix established. The entity is attempting to communicate. The alien text flickered and changed, resolving into words Marcus could read. Who disturbs the dying? Marcus activated his external speakers. My name is Marcus Chen. I'm human. I found you drifting in space, and I want to help. There was a long pause before the response came. Human? Unknown species. Why would you help one who was already dead? You're not dead yet, Marcus replied firmly. I can see the parasites that are killing you, but you're still alive. Still thinking. That means there's still a chance to fix this. Fix? The word appeared on his screen with what Marcus could only interpret as amazement. The death seeds cannot be stopped. They were designed to be perfect. They adapt to every defense, overcome every treatment. The Corvani who made me could not stop them. What makes you think a small creature like yourself could succeed where they failed? Marcus grinned inside his helmet. He'd heard those words before, from mechanics who told him his ancient motorcycle couldn't be repaired, from engineers who said his modifications to the salvage pod systems were impossible, from Sarah when she said he'd never amount to anything more than a grease monkey working in the outer darkness. Because I'm too stubborn to know when to quit, Marcus said. And because I've never met a problem that couldn't be solved if you understood it well enough. These parasites were made by someone, which means they can be unmade. I just need to figure out how. You would risk your life for one you do not know? One who is not even of your species? Marcus looked around the dying chamber, at the fading beauty being consumed by artificial death. Yeah, I would. Because leaving you to die when I might be able to help would make me less than human. And being human is all I've got. The response came faster this time. I am called Zaraneth, last of the Corvani bioships. I have drifted here for 7 cycles, feeling the death seeds consume me piece by piece. If you truly wish to help, small human, then, know this, the parasites adapt to any treatment within hours. They learn from every attack and become stronger. Even if you could destroy them in one location, they would return elsewhere, immune to whatever method you used. Marcus nodded, his mind already working on the problem. That's assuming you try to fight them directly. But what if we didn't? What if instead of trying to kill them, we made them kill themselves? Explain. Well, you said they adapt to any threat, right? They learn and evolve to overcome whatever you throw at them. But what if that adaptation became the problem instead of the solution? What if we could make them adapt themselves to death? There was silence for several minutes before Zaraneth responded. Your thoughts are strange, Marcus-chen. The Corvani tried for 3,000 years to perfect their creations. We believe that adaptation and evolution were always strengths, never weaknesses. But you suggest turning strength into weakness itself? I suggest that anything taken to extremes becomes its own opposite, Marcus replied. Give me access to your medical systems, your biological scanners, everything you have on these parasites. Let me study them for a while. Maybe this stubborn human can see something that perfect Corvani science missed. You will need to interface directly with my biological systems. The connection could be dangerous to your neural pathways. Marcus was already moving toward the interface nodes. Computer, prep the bio-interface cables. Looks like we're going to try something new. Marcus, I strongly advise against direct neural interface with an unknown alien biological system. The risks of contamination or mental damage are, computer, how many times have I told you? The biggest risk is not taking any risks at all. Marcus began connecting the interface cables to his suit's life support systems. Besides, if I don't try, Zaraneth dies anyway. At least this way, we both have a chance. As the connection engaged, Marcus felt his consciousness expand in ways he'd never imagined possible. Suddenly, he could perceive Zaraneth's entire massive form, feel the slow pulse of biological systems spanning thousands of kilometers, sense the network of thoughts and memories that made up the bioship's intelligence. And, everywhere, like a burning ache, he could feel the parasites eating away at the living tissue, spreading their artificial death through systems that had once been perfect. But Marcus-chen had never backed down from a challenge in his life, and he wasn't about to start now. Somewhere in this vast biological maze, there was an answer. There was always an answer. You just had to be stubborn enough to find it. Alright, you metal-eating, system-crashing, artificial little nightmares, Marcus whispered as he began to study the parasite data flowing through his enhanced consciousness. Let's see what makes you tick. And, then, let's see how we can make you stop. Through the neural link, he felt Zaranetha's amazement at his determination, mixed with something the bioship hadn't felt in cycles: hope. For the first time since the Death Seeds had begun their work, the last of the Corvani bioships dared to believe that perhaps the long dying might finally come to an end. Marcus Chen, salvage technician and stubborn human, had work to do. The neural interface hit Marcus like diving into an ocean of living electricity. One moment he was a human sitting in a small pod, the next he was experiencing existence on a scale that should have shattered his mind. He could feel Zaranetha's massive form stretched across thousands of kilometers of space, sense the complex interplay of biological and mechanical systems that kept the bioship alive, and perceive thoughts that moved at speeds far beyond normal human consciousness. But Marcus had always been adaptable. Within minutes, he found himself settling into the strange new perspective, his mind somehow expanding to accommodate the vast flow of information. Through Zaranetha's senses, he could perceive space itself in entirely new ways, detecting gravitational fluctuations, electromagnetic fields, and quantum signatures that his human senses could never have registered. "This is incredible," Marcus breathed, his voice echoing through both his helmet speakers and Zaranetha's internal communication systems. "How do you process all of this information without going insane?" "We are designed for it," Zaraneth replied, the bioship's thoughts resonating directly in Marcus's consciousness. "The Corvani created us to be living worlds, capable of supporting millions of inhabitants while traveling between star systems. We must be aware of everything, from the smallest viral infection in our crew to the largest gravitational anomaly that might threaten our course." Marcus could feel the truth of that statement in the vast network of sensors and monitoring systems that ran through Zaranetha's body like a nervous system. Every cell was monitored, every system tracked and analyzed. It was biological engineering on a scale that humanity had never even dreamed of achieving. But it was also what made the parasite infections so devastating. Marcus could feel them now, the artificial organisms that the bioship had called Death Seeds. They were elegant in their horrible perfection, each one a microscopic machine designed to mimic living cells while slowly converting biological matter into more of themselves. "Show me how they work," Marcus said, focusing his attention on a cluster of parasites that were consuming what looked like part of Zaranetha's digestive system. Through the neural link, Marcus experienced the parasites' attack in horrifying detail. They didn't simply destroy tissue, they studied it first, analyzing its function and, then, improving upon it. A parasite would attach itself to a healthy cell, scan its genetic structure and biological processes, then slowly replace those processes with artificial equivalents that served the parasite's needs while maintaining just enough of the original function to avoid triggering immune responses. "They're not just killing you," Marcus realized with growing horror. "They're replacing you. Cell by cell, system by system. Eventually, there won't be anything left of you except something that looks like you but serves their purposes." "Yes," Zaraneth confirmed sadly. "The Corvani scientists who created the Death Seeds were thorough in their cruelty. They designed them not just to kill us, but to make us complicit in our own destruction. Each infected system continues to function, but serves the parasites instead of our original purpose." Marcus felt anger burning in his chest, not just his own, but a reflection of Zaranetha's rage at the violation of everything the bioship had been created to protect. The Corvani Civil War had ended with the entire species' extinction, but not before they had created these weapons of spite, designed to ensure that their greatest achievements would die with them. "Computer," Marcus called out to his pod's AI, "are you getting all of this data?" "Affirmative. I'm recording everything transmitted through the neural interface. The biological complexity is extraordinary, I'm having to compress the data streams just to store them." "Good. Keep recording. I want every detail of how these parasites work." Marcus turned his attention back to studying the infection patterns, trying to understand the underlying mechanisms. What he saw made him whistle in admiration despite himself. The parasites were adaptive in ways that went far beyond simple mutation. Each individual parasite was connected to all the others through a quantum communication network, allowing them to instantly share information about any new threats or defense mechanisms they encountered. When Zaranetha's immune system developed a new antibody, every parasite in the bioship's body immediately adapted to resist it. When medications were introduced, the parasites analyzed them and developed countermeasures within hours. But Marcus was beginning to see something that the original Corvani scientists might have missed. The parasites' greatest strength, their perfect adaptation, required them to be in constant communication with each other. They had to share information instantly, or their adaptation advantage would be lost. That communication network was their lifeline. It was also their potential weakness. Zaraneth, Marcus said slowly, an idea beginning to form in his mind. Can you show me the quantum communication channels the parasites use to coordinate with each other? I can detect them, but I cannot access them. The parasites use quantum entanglement patterns that my biological systems cannot interpret or interfere with. But my pod's computer might be able to, Marcus said with growing excitement. Computer, are you detecting the quantum communication network? Yes, Marcus. The parasites are using a sophisticated quantum entanglement array to maintain instantaneous communication across the entire bioship. The network architecture is remarkably elegant. Can you map it? Figure out how to tap into their communications? Working. This will take several hours. The quantum encryption is quite advanced. Marcus settled back in his interface chair, feeling Zaranetha's confusion through their neural link. What are you planning, small human? I'm planning to use their greatest strength against them, Marcus replied. These parasites are perfect because they adapt instantly to any threat. But what if we could feed them false information? What if we could make them adapt to something that would kill them instead of help them? Explain further. Marcus organized his thoughts, drawing on years of experience troubleshooting complex systems. Every communication network has vulnerabilities. If we can tap into their quantum channels, we might be able to inject false data. We could make them think they're under attack by something that doesn't actually exist, trick them into adapting defenses that would actually make them vulnerable to their real environment. Through the neural link, Marcus felt Zaranetha's excitement beginning to build. You would turn their perfect adaptation into a weapon against themselves? Exactly. Instead of trying to create a poison they can't adapt to, which is impossible, we make them poison themselves by adapting to false threats. Marcus spent the next several hours studying the parasite communication network while his computer worked to crack their quantum encryption. Through Zaranetha's senses, he could observe the parasites in action, watching as they methodically converted healthy tissue into more of themselves. But he also began to notice patterns in their behavior. The parasites were almost obsessively thorough in their analysis of potential threats. When Zaranetha's immune system released a new type of white blood cell, every parasite in the affected area immediately stopped its current activity to analyze the threat and develop countermeasures. They were so focused on perfect adaptation that they sometimes ignored obvious vulnerabilities while chasing phantom dangers. Computer, how's the decryption coming? I've identified the basic communication protocols. The parasites use a form of quantum entanglement that allows instantaneous data transfer regardless of distance. I should be able to establish a connection within the next hour. While he waited, Marcus explored more of Zaranetha's vast interior through the neural interface. The bioship had once been home to millions of Corvani, a living world that could travel between star systems while providing everything its inhabitants needed to survive and thrive. The cities embedded in Zaranetha's flesh had been marvels of biological architecture, with buildings that grew rather than being constructed, transportation systems based on controlled blood flow, and manufacturing centers that used directed evolution to create whatever tools or materials were needed. Now those cities were graveyards. The parasite infection had killed most of the Corvani inhabitants within the first few months, and their bodies had been absorbed into the bioship's recycling systems. Only a few automated systems continued to function, maintaining minimal life support in areas where the parasites hadn't yet spread. You were magnificent, Marcus said softly, feeling the weight of all that lost civilization. I'm sorry this happened to you. We were proud, Zaraneth replied, sadness coloring the bioship's thoughts. Perhaps too proud. We believed our biological technology made us superior to species that relied on artificial constructs. We never imagined that our own people would turn that technology against us. Who did this? Who created the parasites? A faction of Corvani scientists who believed that our bioships had become too independent, too powerful. They feared we would eventually replace our creators entirely. When the Civil War began, they sided with those who wanted to destroy us rather than risk losing control. Marcus felt a familiar anger building in his chest. He'd seen the same pattern on dozens of worlds, people so afraid of losing power that they'd rather destroy everything than risk someone else having it. It was the same petty, destructive impulse that had driven humanity to the edge of extinction several times in its history. Well, Marcus said grimly, they're all dead now, and you're still alive. That means we get to prove them wrong. Connection established, his computer announced suddenly. I have successfully tapped into the Parasite communication network. I can now monitor their data exchanges and, with some preparation, inject false information into their communications. Marcus grinned fiercely. Perfect. Computer, I want you to create a false threat profile, something that would trigger maximum defensive response from the parasites but would actually make them vulnerable to their current environment. Working. I recommend creating a phantom toxin that appears to attack their cellular walls. If they adapt to defend against this non-existent threat, they would likely alter their membrane permeability in ways that would make them vulnerable to Zaranetha's normal biological processes. Do it. But, make it gradual, we don't want them to realize they're being tricked until it's too late. Over the next few hours, Marcus watched through the neural interface as his plan began to take effect. The computer slowly introduced false data into the parasite network, creating the illusion of a new biological weapon that was targeting infected areas. The parasites responded exactly as Marcus had hoped, immediately beginning to adapt their defenses against the phantom threat. But, their adaptations made them vulnerable to things they had previously been immune to. Parasites that had been resistant to Zaranetha's immune system suddenly found themselves being destroyed by white blood cells. Areas where the infection had been spreading rapidly began to stabilize as the parasites' altered membranes made them susceptible to the bioship's natural cleansing processes. It's working, Zaraneth said, wonder evident in the bioship's thoughts. The death seeds are dying. I can feel healthy tissue regenerating in areas that have been infected for cycles. Don't celebrate yet, Marcus warned, though he was grinning inside his helmet. We need to maintain the deception until every last parasite is dead. If even a few survive, they might figure out what we did and adapt countermeasures. But Marcus was already thinking ahead to what would come next. Curing Zaraneth was only the beginning. The bioship represented technology beyond anything humanity had ever achieved, and, in the right hands, it could become something truly extraordinary. Marcus Chen had come out here looking for salvage. Instead, he'd found something that could change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. The question was, what was he going to do with it? Through the neural link, he felt Zaranetha's growing strength as more parasites succumbed to their own misdirected adaptations. For the first time in years, the bioship dared to hope that the long dying might truly be coming to an end. And Marcus was just getting started. 3 weeks after beginning the deception protocol, Marcus watched through the neural interface as the last cluster of parasites finally succumbed to their own misdirected adaptations. The artificial organisms had spent days trying to defend against a threat that didn't exist, altering their cellular structure in ways that made them fatally vulnerable to Zaranetha's restored immune system. The death seeds are gone, Zaraneth announced, the bioship's thoughts resonating with a joy that Marcus felt echoing through his own consciousness. I can sense healthy tissue regenerating throughout my entire structure. Systems that have been offline for cycles are coming back online. Marcus smiled inside his helmet as he felt the bioship's massive form stirring to new life around him. Through their neural connection, he could perceive the incredible complexity of Zaranetha's biological systems as they began operating at full capacity for the first time in years. It was like watching a dying forest suddenly burst into bloom. Computer, are you getting readings on the bioship's power output? Marcus asked. Affirmative. Energy levels are increasing exponentially. The bioship's biological reactors are producing power equivalent to a small star. Additionally, I'm detecting activation of systems that don't appear in any of our databases. Through the neural link, Marcus could feel those mysterious systems coming online. Weapons that could reshape matter at the molecular level. Shields that bent spacetime itself. Propulsion systems that could fold space and travel between galaxies in a matter of days. The Corvani had built their bioships to be more than just vessels, they were living weapons of incredible power. Zaraneth, Marcus said carefully, exactly how powerful are you? I am a Class 7 bioship, Zaraneth replied, pride coloring the bioship's thoughts. I was designed to serve as a mobile headquarters for the Corvani fleet, capable of supporting 10 million inhabitants while engaging entire enemy armadas in battle. My weapons can destroy planets, and my defenses can withstand the explosion of a supernova. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold of space. He'd thought he was saving a dying creature out of compassion. Instead, he'd apparently restored one of the most powerful weapons in the galaxy to full operational status. And now I'm connected directly to your neural systems, Marcus said slowly. Which means I have access to all of those weapons. Yes, Zaraneth confirmed. Through our neural link, you have become my commanding consciousness. In the absence of my Corvani creators, you are effectively my captain. Marcus sat in stunned silence for several minutes, trying to process the implications. He was just a salvage technician from Earth, someone who fixed broken machines for a living. He had no training in military strategy, no experience commanding anything more complicated than a one-man salvage pod. And now he apparently controlled enough firepower to level entire solar systems. Computer, Marcus said finally, please tell me you've been recording all of this. Every moment, Marcus. I've also been analyzing the bioship's capabilities. If the power readings I'm detecting are accurate, this vessel could single-handedly take on the combined fleets of every major galactic power and win. That's what I was afraid of. Marcus rubbed his temples, feeling the beginning of a massive headache. Zaraneth, I need you to understand something. I'm not a warrior. I'm not a conqueror. I'm just a guy who likes fixing things. I have no intention of using your weapons to attack anyone. I understand, Zaraneth replied. But others may not be so understanding when they learn of my restoration. The galaxy has been relatively peaceful since the fall of the Corvani Empire, but that peace exists largely because no single power possesses weapons capable of dominating all others. My return to active status will upset that balance. Marcus nodded grimly. He'd studied enough galactic history to know that Zaraneth was right. The current political situation was a careful balance of competing powers, none strong enough to conquer the others but all strong enough to defend themselves. The sudden appearance of a fully operational Corvani bioship would terrify every government in the galaxy. So what do we do? Marcus asked. I can't just pretend you don't exist. But, if we announce your presence, every military force in the galaxy will either try to capture you or destroy you. There is a third option, Zaraneth said thoughtfully. We could demonstrate that my power will be used for protection rather than conquest. Show the galaxy that the return of Corvani technology represents hope rather than threat. Before Marcus could ask what the bioship meant, his computer's proximity alarms began screaming. Marcus, I'm detecting multiple ships approaching our position. Configuration suggests Rakari raiders, at least 30 vessels, all armed. Through the neural interface, Marcus felt Zaraneth's sensors reach out across space, analyzing the incoming fleet in detail. The Rakari were one of the nastier pirate factions in this sector, known for capturing ships intact so they could torture the crews for entertainment before selling them into slavery. They must have detected the energy surge when my systems came back online, Zaraneth observed. Rakari raiders often monitored deep space for signs of disabled vessels. Marcus felt his jaw clench as he studied the approaching ships through Zaraneth's enhanced sensors. Each Rakari vessel was bristling with weapons and packed with boarding parties. They weren't just planning to loot whatever they found, they were planning to take prisoners. How long until they reach us? Marcus asked. Approximately 1 hour at their current speed, his computer replied. Marcus, I should point out that your salvage pod is not equipped for combat against 30 armed vessels. No, Marcus said slowly, but Zaraneth is. Through the neural link, he could feel the bioship's weapons systems cycling to full power. Guns that fired streams of weaponized plasma. Missile launchers that could deploy small black holes. Point defense systems that could track and destroy thousands of incoming projectiles simultaneously. But he could also sense something else through their connection, Zaraneth's excitement at the prospect of battle. The bioship had been designed as a weapon of war, and some part of it was eager to prove its capabilities after so many years of helpless suffering. Zaraneth, Marcus said carefully, I need you to promise me something. We defend ourselves, but we don't slaughter them unnecessarily. Disable their ships, capture their crews if possible. We're not executioners. You would show mercy to creatures who intended to torture and enslave you? I would show mercy because that's what separates us from them, Marcus replied firmly. Power without restraint is just another form of tyranny. Marcus felt Zaranetha's surprise through their neural connection, followed by something that might have been respect. Your species thinks in ways that still surprise me, Marcus-Chen. Very well, we will demonstrate the proper use of overwhelming force. As the Vakari fleet drew closer, Marcus found himself settling into the strange dual perspective of the neural interface. Part of him remained human, sitting in his small salvage pod. But another part expanded to fill Zaranetha's massive form, feeling the bioship's incredible power flowing through systems the size of cities. Incoming communication from the Vakari fleet, his computer announced. Put it through. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the scarred face of a Vakari captain. The alien's reptilian features were twisted in a cruel grin, revealing rows of sharp teeth. Unknown vessel, the Vakari hissed, you will prepare to be boarded. Surrender now, and your death will be quick. Resist, and we will make it last for days. Marcus activated his response transmitter. This is Marcus-Chen, captain of the bioship Zaraneth. You are ordered to withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The Vakari captain's grin widened. Bioship? You expect us to believe you command one of the legendary Corvani vessels? Those are myths, human. Tales told to frighten children. Computer, Marcus said quietly, transmit our full sensor profile to the Vakari fleet. The Vakari captain's expression changed rapidly as the data reached his ships. The cruel grin faded, replaced by growing alarm as his sensors confirmed what his eyes refused to believe. Impossible, the Vakari whispered. The bioships are extinct. They died with their creators. Apparently not, Marcus replied calmly. You have 60 seconds to reverse course and leave this system. After that, I stop being polite. The Vakari captain snarled, his fear transforming into rage. You think one ship can stand against our entire fleet? Even if you are what you claim to be, you are outnumbered 30-1. 59 seconds, Marcus said. Through the neural interface, he could feel Zaraneth preparing for battle. The bioship's weapons systems were charging to full power, its shields extending to create a protective barrier that could deflect the energy output of a small star. The Vakari captain cut the transmission, and Marcus watched through Zaranetha's sensors as the raider fleet began spreading into attack formation. Clearly, they had decided that even a bioship could be overwhelmed by sheer numbers. They were about to learn otherwise. Zaraneth, Marcus said softly, show them what a real predator looks like. The bioship's response was immediate and devastating. Streams of weaponized plasma erupted from hidden gunports across Zaranetha's massive hull, each one precisely targeted to disable rather than destroy. Within seconds, half the Vakari fleet found their engines offline and their weapon systems fried. The remaining ships tried to scatter, but Zaranetha's targeting systems tracked them effortlessly. Missiles that contained miniature black holes streaked across space, creating gravitational distortions that yanked the fleeing ships out of their escape trajectories without destroying them. In less than 5 minutes, the entire Vakari fleet was disabled and drifting helplessly in space. Broadcast to all Vakari vessels, Marcus ordered. This is your only warning. The bioship Zaraneth has returned, and we will not tolerate slavery, piracy, or cruelty in this sector. You will release any prisoners you currently hold, compensate your victims to the best of your ability, and find honest work. Refuse, and next time we won't be so gentle. Through the neural interface, Marcus felt Zaranetha's satisfaction at the decisive victory. But he also sensed something else, a growing understanding of what Marcus meant about power and responsibility. The galaxy will know of this within days, Zaraneth observed. Word of my return will spread quickly. Good, Marcus replied. Let them know that the age of bioships isn't over. But also let them know that we're not here for conquest. We're here to make sure the galaxy's bullies think twice before hurting innocent people. As the disabled Vakari ships began transmitting their surrender, Marcus started planning for what came next. He'd saved Zaranetha's life, gained access to incredible power, and sent a message that would be heard across the galaxy. Now came the hard part, figuring out how to use that power responsibly. Through their neural link, Marcus felt Zaranetha's growing excitement. For the first time in millennia, the bioship had a purpose again. Not just survival, but something worth fighting for. The human and the living starship were going to change the galaxy together. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for that change. 6 months after the encounter with the Brakari raiders, Marcus was beginning to understand just how much his life had changed. Word of Zaranetha's return had spread across the galaxy like wildfire, and everyone seemed to have an opinion about what it meant. The human was currently standing in what had once been Zaranetha's main diplomatic chamber, a vast organic amphitheater that could hold thousands of delegates. The walls pulsed with soft bioluminescence, and the air carried the faint scent of growing things. It would have been beautiful if not for the dozen holographic displays showing the increasingly urgent communications flooding in from across the galaxy. Another formal request for audience from the Terran Federation, his computer announced. They're offering a full trade partnership and military alliance if we agree to establish a permanent base in human space. Added to the pile, Marcus sighed, rubbing his temples where a headache was building. Through the neural interface, he could feel Zaranetha's amusement at his frustration. You are learning that power brings complications, the bioship observed. Every government wants to either control us or destroy us. There seems to be little middle ground. Marcus nodded grimly. In the past 6 months, they'd received everything from marriage proposals to assassination attempts. The hegemony of Zara had offered Marcus an entire planet if he would use Zaraneth to help them conquer their neighbors. The Machine Collective had tried to hack into Zaranetha's systems to steal bioship technology. 3 different terrorist organizations had attempted to board them with suicide bombers. But they'd also received thousands of requests for help from ordinary citizens across the galaxy. Mining colonies under attack by pirates. Refugee ships stranded in dead systems. Entire worlds threatened by natural disasters that their governments couldn't handle. Computer, show me the priority requests, Marcus said. The holographic display shifted, showing a map of the local galactic arm with dozens of red markers indicating crisis situations. Each marker represented people who needed help that no one else was willing or able to provide. The most urgent appears to be the situation in the Kepler 442 system, his computer reported. A massive solar flare has disabled the planetary shields on 3 inhabited worlds. Without assistance, the radiation will kill approximately 40 million colonists within the next 72 hours. Marcus studied the data. Kepler 442 was in disputed territory, claimed by both the Altarian Republic and the Centauri Coalition. Neither government was willing to risk their ships in the other's claimed space, even for humanitarian purposes. The colonists would die while politicians argued about territorial rights. Zaraneth, how long to reach Kepler 442 at maximum speed? 18 hours using spatial fold technology, the bioship replied. I could extend my own shields to protect all 3 worlds until their defensive systems are repaired. Computer, any military presence in that system? Both the Altarian and Centauri fleets have ships in the area, but they're maintaining defensive positions on opposite sides of the system. Intelligence reports suggest both sides are hoping the other will be forced to act first. Marcus felt his jaw clench. This was exactly the kind of political stupidity that he'd hoped to avoid when word of Zaranetha's return spread. Politicians more concerned with appearances than lives. Set course for Kepler 442, Marcus ordered. Maximum speed. Marcus, his computer said carefully, intervening in a disputed system could be interpreted as taking sides in the Altarian-Centauri conflict. Both governments have warned against interfering in their territorial disputes. Both governments can file a complaint with someone who cares, Marcus replied. I'm not going to let 40 million people die because their politicians are idiots. Through the neural interface, Marcus felt the familiar sensation of Zaranetha's spacefolding engines engaging. Reality twisted around them as the bioship bent spacetime to its will, crossing light years in mere hours. Marcus had never gotten used to the sensation of folded space travel. It felt like being turned inside out while falling through a kaleidoscope. When they dropped back into normal space near Kepler 442, Marcus immediately understood the scope of the disaster. The system's sun was in the middle of a massive solar event, hurling radiation and charged particles in all directions. The three inhabited worlds, mining colonies with populations in the millions, were struggling to maintain their protective shields against the bombardment. Zaraneth, analysis of the situation? The planetary shields are failing rapidly, the bioship reported. At current degradation rates, the first colony will lose protection within 6 hours. The others will follow within 12 hours. Without intervention, the radiation exposure will be lethal to all inhabitants. And, you can protect them? Yes. I can extend my defensive fields to encompass all three worlds. However, doing so will require me to remain stationary in the system's center, making us vulnerable to attack if either fleet decides to engage us. Through the neural interface, Marcus could sense the approaching military vessels. Altarian battleships were moving in from the system's edge, while Centauri dreadnoughts took up positions on the opposite side. Both fleets were heavily armed and, clearly prepared for battle. Marcus activated the general communication frequency. This is Marcus Chen aboard the bioship Zaraneth. We're here to provide humanitarian assistance to the colonies. Any interference with our rescue operations will be considered an act of aggression. The response came from both fleets simultaneously. Bioship Zaraneth, the Altarian admiral's voice crackled over the comms. This system is under Altarian protection. We cannot allow foreign military assets to operate here without authorization. Unknown vessel, the Centauri fleet commander interrupted, you are violating Centauri territorial space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Marcus felt his temper beginning to rise. Computer, open a three-way channel. I want both admirals to hear this. When the connection was established, Marcus's voice carried across space to both fleets. Listen carefully, because I'm only going to say this once. I don't care about your territorial disputes. I don't care about your politics. I care about the 40 million people who are going to die if someone doesn't act in the next few hours. Zaraneth is going to protect those colonies whether you like it or not. You have no authority here, the Altarian admiral protested. This is sovereign space. My authority comes from having the power to help and the will to use it, Marcus replied coldly. Zaraneth, begin deployment of protective fields. Marcus felt the bioship's massive energy systems redirecting power to the shield generators. Through the neural interface, he experienced the incredible complexity of projecting protective fields across interplanetary distances while maintaining perfect alignment with three different worlds. The effect was immediately visible on the sensor displays. Shimmering barriers of force began forming around each of the threatened colonies, deflecting the deadly solar radiation back into space. Impossible, the Centauri commander whispered. No single ship has that kind of power output. You're thinking in terms of artificial constructs, Marcus replied. Zaraneth isn't just a ship, she's a living being with capabilities your engineers can't even imagine. Through their neural link, Marcus felt Zaraneth's satisfaction at the successful deployment. The bioship's shields were easily containing the solar radiation, and the colonies were already reporting that their own defensive systems were beginning to stabilize. But Marcus could also sense new contacts approaching through hyperspace. His computer identified them as additional ships from both fleets, reinforcements arriving to complicate an already tense situation. Marcus, Zaraneth warned, both fleets are taking aggressive positions. They appear to be preparing for battle. They wouldn't be stupid enough to start shooting while we're protecting civilians, Marcus said, but, even as he spoke, he realized he might be wrong. Politicians had done stupider things for smaller reasons. His worst fears were confirmed when weapons locks from both fleets began painting Zaraneth with targeting sensors. Bioship Zaraneth, the Altarian admiral transmitted, you have 60 seconds to withdraw from Altarian space or we will open fire. Centauri coalition vessel, the opposing commander added, you are in violation of territorial boundaries. Comply with our demands or face destruction. Marcus felt something cold and dangerous building in his chest. Through the neural interface, he could sense Zaraneth's own growing anger. The bioship had spent millennia watching its creators destroy themselves through politics and pride. Now it was seeing the same pattern repeated by different species. Computer, Marcus said quietly, are you recording all of this? Yes, Marcus. Every transmission is being logged and transmitted to news networks across the galaxy. Good. I want everyone to see what happens next. Marcus activated the general frequency again. Final warning to both fleets. Zaraneth is conducting humanitarian operations to save civilian lives. Any attack on us will be considered an attack on those civilians. We will respond accordingly. You're outnumbered 200 to 1, the Altarian admiral snarled. Even a bioship can't stand against odds like that. Marcus smiled grimly. Computer, display our full power output on all frequencies. Let them see what they're threatening to attack. The sensor readings that flooded both fleets' displays were staggering. Zaranetha's energy signature was off the scale, showing power levels equivalent to a small sun. Weapons systems that could crack planets were cycling to full charge. Defensive fields that could withstand supernovas were reinforcing around the bioship's massive hull. But, most importantly, Marcus could feel something else through the neural interface. Across the galaxy, other entities were taking notice of the confrontation. Ancient intelligences that had slept for millennia were stirring, drawn by the return of Corvani technology to active status. Admirals, Marcus said softly, you're about to make a mistake that will be remembered for 1,000 years. Stand down now, or discover why the Corvani Empire ruled this galaxy for 3 millennia. The silence stretched across space for long minutes. Then, finally, both fleet commanders began ordering their ships to withdraw to safe distances. Marcus felt Zaranetha's amusement through their connection. You are learning to use power effectively, the bioship observed. Sometimes the threat of force is more powerful than force itself. Let's hope it stays that way, Marcus replied. But, he could feel something changing in the galactic political landscape. Word of this confrontation would spread, and other powers would begin making calculations about the threat or opportunity that Zaraneth represented. The age of bioships was truly returning. The question was whether the galaxy would accept that return peacefully or try to fight it. Through the neural link, Marcus felt Zaranetha's protective fields holding steady around the 3 colonies, keeping 40 million people safe from the solar radiation. Whatever happened next, they had saved those lives. That had to count for something. But Marcus was beginning to realize that saving lives and changing the galaxy might end up being the same thing. 1 year after the Kepler 442 incident, Marcus stood in Zaranetha's newly grown command center, watching real-time displays of 15 different humanitarian operations across the galaxy. The bioship had grown new chambers and structures over the past months, adapting its interior to accommodate their expanding mission. Refugee fleet evacuation from the Vega system is proceeding on schedule, his computer reported. The vegan civil war has displaced approximately 3 million civilians, and local governments are unable to provide assistance. Medical relief operations in the Tau Ceti cluster are showing positive results, Zaraneth added through their neural link. The plague outbreak has been contained, and casualty rates are dropping significantly. Marcus nodded, feeling a mix of satisfaction and exhaustion. The past year had been a whirlwind of crisis response, as word spread across the galaxy that the bioship Zaraneth was willing and able to help where others couldn't or wouldn't. They had stopped 3 wars, prevented 2 genocides, and saved countless lives from natural disasters, disease, and the countless cruelties that sapient beings inflicted on each other. But their success had come with a price. Every government in the galaxy was now watching them, trying to figure out whether Zaraneth represented an opportunity to be exploited or a threat to be eliminated. Marcus, his computer announced, were receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council. They're demanding immediate audience. Put it through, Marcus sighed. He'd been expecting this call for months. The holographic display activated, showing the council chamber where representatives from every major galactic power had gathered. At the center stood Chancellor Vex of the Altarian Republic, her blue-scale features set in an expression of barely contained anger. Marcus Chen, Chancellor Vex began without preamble, by order of the Galactic Council, you and your vessel are commanded to appear before this body to answer charges of violating interstellar law. What charges? Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew. Unauthorized military intervention in sovereign territory. Violation of established territorial boundaries. Interference with legitimate governmental operations. The list is extensive. Marcus felt his jaw clench. You mean saving lives that you were too political to save yourselves? You mean imposing your will on sovereign governments through superior force? Chancellor Vex snapped. Your actions have destabilized the balance of power that has maintained peace in this galaxy for centuries. Through the neural interface, Marcus could feel Zaranetha's growing anger. The bioship had little patience for the political games that seemed to matter more to galactic leaders than the lives of their own citizens. And, if we refuse to appear? Marcus asked. Then, you will be declared enemies of galactic peace and dealt with accordingly, Chancellor Vex replied coldly. Marcus looked at the assembled representatives, seeing the same pattern he'd observed 1,000 times before. Fear masked as authority. Weakness disguised as strength. Politicians more concerned with maintaining their positions than protecting their people. Computer, Marcus said quietly, show me current crisis reports. The displays around him lit up with dozens of emergency situations across the galaxy. Slave ships operating in the Outer Rim. Pirates attacking refugee convoys. Entire star systems facing ecological collapse while their governments argued over jurisdiction. Chancellor Vex, Marcus said finally, while you've been preparing this little tribunal, 47,000 people have died from preventable causes across the galaxy. Diseases that could be cured, disasters that could be mitigated, conflicts that could be resolved, all ignored because the proper authorities can't be bothered to help. Those are internal matters, the Chancellor protested. The Galactic Council cannot interfere in the sovereign affairs of member worlds. But, you expect me to, Marcus replied. You want me to ignore suffering because it might make you look bad. Chancellor Vex's expression hardened. You will appear before this council within 72 hours, or face the combined military forces of the galactic powers. Even your bioship cannot stand against the united fleets of a dozen species. The transmission ended, leaving Marcus staring at the darkened display. Through the neural link, he could feel Zaraneth processing the implications of the council's ultimatum. They are afraid, the bioship observed. Our success has shown their weakness, and they cannot tolerate that. Can we fight them? Marcus asked. If it comes to that? We could destroy their fleets, Zaraneth replied without hesitation. But, at what cost? Millions of beings crew those ships, most of them just following orders. And, victory would only prove their point, that we are a threat to galactic peace. Marcus nodded grimly. Violence might solve the immediate problem, but it would create a dozen new ones. The galaxy would unite against them, and everything they'd accomplished would be undone. Computer, get me a secure channel to the independent news networks. All of them. Connection established. You're broadcasting to approximately 4 billion beings across the galaxy. Marcus took a deep breath, knowing that what he said next would determine the future of everything they'd built. Citizens of the galaxy, he began, my name is Marcus Chen, and I need to tell you about a choice we all face. 1 year ago, I found a dying bioship drifting in space, infected with artificial parasites designed to kill it slowly from within. I saved that ship because I believed that anything capable of suffering deserved help if it could be given. Through the neural interface, Marcus felt Zaraneth broadcasting images of their rescue operations across the galaxy. Refugee children receiving medical treatment. Colony worlds protected from natural disasters. Slave ships stopped and their captives freed. Since then, Zaraneth and I have tried to help wherever we could, Marcus continued. We've saved millions of lives, stopped wars, prevented genocides. And, now your governments want to put us on trial for it. The images shifted, showing the corruption and indifference of galactic leaders. Politicians who ignored pleas for help while living in luxury. Military commanders who refused to act while civilians died. Bureaucrats who prioritized procedure over people. They call us a threat to galactic peace, Marcus said, his voice growing stronger. But, what kind of peace allows slavery to flourish in the Outer Rim? What kind of peace ignores genocide because it's internal affairs? What kind of peace lets children starve while politicians argue over jurisdiction? Marcus could see through Zaranetha's sensors that the broadcast was being received across the galaxy. On worlds where they provided aid, crowds were gathering to listen. Even in government centers, people were stopping their work to hear what he had to say. The Galactic Council has given me an ultimatum, Marcus continued. Submit to their authority or face their combined fleets. They want me to choose between following their laws or helping people who need it. But that's not really a choice, is it? Through the neural link, Marcus felt something he'd never experienced before. Across the galaxy, other intelligences were reaching out to Zaraneth. Ancient AIs awakening from long dormancy. Alien minds that had been waiting for someone to stand up to the corrupt powers that had ruled through fear and bureaucracy. So here's what's going to happen, Marcus announced. Zaraneth and I are going to keep doing what we've always done, helping people who need help, regardless of what their governments think about it. If that makes us criminals, then we'll be criminals. If that makes us enemies of galactic peace, then maybe galactic peace isn't worth preserving. The response was immediate and overwhelming. On dozens of worlds, civilian populations began demonstrating in support of the bioship. Ships began broadcasting messages of support. Even some military units announced that they would refuse orders to attack Zaraneth. But Marcus could also see the government fleets mobilizing, preparing for a confrontation that would reshape the galaxy one way or another. Computer, Marcus said quietly, are you detecting any other bioships? Yes, Marcus. Long-range sensors are picking up massive energy signatures in several distant systems. It appears that other bioships are awakening and beginning to move. Through the neural interface, Marcus felt Zaraneth's excitement. The bioship had been alone for so long, the last of its kind. But now others were stirring, drawn by the return of their technology to active status. How many? Marcus asked. At least 7 confirmed, possibly more. They appear to be converging on our position. Marcus smiled grimly. The Galactic Council had wanted to face one bioship. Now they might have to deal with 8. Zaraneth, can you contact them? Yes. We share quantum communication protocols. I can reach out across any distance. Do it. Tell them what we're doing here. Tell them what we're fighting for. As Zaraneth reached out to its awakening siblings, Marcus felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. The age of bioships was returning, but this time they wouldn't serve an empire. They would serve the principle that power without compassion was just another form of tyranny. The galaxy's corrupt leaders had made their choice. They preferred the stability of indifference to the chaos of caring. They wanted a peace built on looking the other way while people suffered. Marcus Chen, human technician turned commander of living starships, had made his choice too. He would rather fight for a better galaxy than accept a peaceful one that ignored its own people. The bioships were coming. The old order was ending. And, across the galaxy, beings who had given up hope were beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, things could actually change. Through the neural link, Marcus felt Zaraneth's joy as contact was established with the other bioships. They were no longer alone. The family was reuniting, and they had work to do. The galaxy would never be the same.